What is going on, SoFi fans? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about the ownership behind SoFi and what that actually is telling. I also want to talk on some very interesting articles and what Jim Cramer is also saying about SoFi and other banks. Before I get into any of that, making sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. With that said, let's get right to it. Live ticker is going at the very bottom of the screen. It is very good to see SoFi continuously green for the last couple of days. Currently up 4.5%, 32.4 million for volume, 41.9 is the average, and 6.6 million shares being purchased by institutions on the secondary market, which is also matching the dark pool. So a lot of big money is getting in through that as well. So you can see 1.29 million, but a lot of big money clearly is reorganizing a lot of their portfolios now that Q4 has just started. So let me know your thoughts on that. Definitely this is a nice change of events though. As I've been given updates over the last couple of days, big money is starting to get back in. So that's always a very good takeaway. But when it comes to it though, Jim Cramer, as much as he's a joke in a lot of people's minds and mentalities, unfortunately a lot of people do listen to him. So typically what he does say in one way or another does affect whatever sector he's talking about. So now he's saying now is the time to look at banks. And actually, to be honest, when I read this, I kind of laughed out loud because for the longest time, as I've been saying, when we've gone cheaper and cheaper, fundamentally the environment that we're in, the banking sector is going to flourish in a higher interest rate environment. It is just the stupidest mentality to think that SoFi isn't a buy right now. And so the fact that Jim Cramer all of a sudden had this epiphany is like, wow, right now is the time to buy banks. I kind of found that a little bit more comical. Let me know your thoughts on that, but in my head at least, keep in mind though, I'm not a financial advisor, but in my head, banks is a buy. It's a no-brainer whatsoever. And oddly enough, there was a very good article that came out by 𝗪𝗧𝗛𝗛, and I know 𝗪𝗧𝗛𝗛 is a little bit iffy, but 3 growth stocks to buy in October and never sell. So one of which is Trade Desk, Lovesac, and SoFi. So within SoFi's case, they talk on ultimately how it's going to flourish in a higher interest rate environment, which as I said, even though technically they are raising their yield to bring in more customers, which ultimately does affect their profitability in the end. But they do say that the personal loans, auto loans, and mortgages have risen enough so to offset that. So still very beneficial in the grand scheme of things. So let me know your thoughts on that. It's always a very good sign to see bullish articles on SoFi because there's a lot of manipulation. There's been always a lot of manipulation with SoFi, especially more so coming from shorts and what they do. So I just want to briefly touch on that. As of right now, despite us going up almost about 5%, they're increasing 500,000 shares today. So 13.99 is a short interest, but still 109.42 million shares is being shorted. And it hasn't really happened that much recently, but this is a very good indication and proof of manipulation. So you do see cost to borrow minimum is actually negative, so negative 0.2%, insinuating that there's a broker out there physically paying people to short SoFi. It's completely messed up if you ask me, and definitely shouldn't be allowed. But in the end though, a lot of these shorts are most likely going to be losing a lot of money, more specifically if they are shorting against SoFi. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But one thing as well, I just want to quickly pop over to Interactive Brokers and share something with you. I found something very, very interesting, and it ultimately talks on institutional ownership and so forth. So it does say that institutions own roughly about 35% of SoFi, and this is now given the new circumstances after SoftBank kind of dropped the majority of their position. But oddly enough, and interestingly as well, it does say individual investors own 50% of SoFi. And I guess I've never really looked at this after SoftBank dropped off their position. Like I said, they're substantial. I believe is around 49 million, somewhere around there. But let me know in the comments below if I am right or wrong about that, but the general public owns 49.5% of SoFi. That is a very, very big deal. And now when I read that, I kind of had an epiphany a little bit because it made me think, it's like, this is why shorts are manipulating SoFi so much. And because technically individual retail investors own the majority stake of SoFi. So technically we're not all organized. A lot of us are very negative on the stock, still hold it, still dime in hand and things like that. Whereas institutions are a little bit more organized, and obviously they have a lot more money as an individual. So typically whatever their best interest is, that they can make movements adjusting based on that. Whereas if you do have a lot of individual retail investors, it's hard to kind of organize and get one common mentality. So this is where shorts can easily take advantage of SoFi. So in the grand scheme of things, eventually, based on our earnings, whether it be Q3, Q4, whatever it is, we are going to get to a point where when we have all the data coming from our earnings insinuating that we should be at a certain price, shorts are going to be forced to cover their positions. Most likely, institutions and SoftBank or other specialized institutions are going to buy back into SoFi and cause it to go up more so to where it should be. Like I've always said, around the $10 range is where it should be at. But a lot of people like to decode exactly what is happening behind the scenes, similar to myself. Like I always say, I like to see what the data behind the scenes is actually saying. And in this article, it does say, what does the institutional ownership tell us about SoFi? And ultimately, it does say that it's a very good investment grade company. So that's a very good takeaway from all of this fun jazz. So let me know your thoughts on that. If you do like interactive brokers and this kind of stats and whatnot, click on the link in the description below or the comments. But just going back here, just want to quickly give you some technical analysis. On the actual chart, I have the 50, 100, 200-day moving averages, Bollinger Bands, RSI, stochastic, and momentum. So in reality, if you see the stochastic, we are at 11, still very much oversold. And hands down, that is one of the biggest attributing factors why the broader market is going through a very big rally, is because everything is oversold. A couple analysts jumped all over that and said, you know what, we're in for a massive rally, blah, blah, blah. And this is basically where we are at, in addition to some good economic events and data points as well. But given all the circumstances, I think we do have the ability to at least get to the higher potential of the Bollinger Band around the 650 range. Obviously, like I said, this is only for entertainment purposes and all that fun jazz. RSI is also at 44. Momentum, number of retail investors are kind of stagnant today a little bit, but a lot of other growth stocks are starting to transition into the higher percentage of the Bollinger Band, so SoFi is going to be no different. So let me know your thoughts on all of that fun stuff in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. It is always greatly appreciated. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With all that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on SoFi.